well, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 49 of the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. It is me, your host, and I am joined, as I always am, by the crooked picture frame to my OCD panic attack, Mr. Samuel David Camp. What is up?
How many times a day, Daniel, do you adjust, like say, for example, the frame behind you?
Oh, well, see, is it? No, now I'm going to be distracted this whole podcast thinking if it's not perfectly straight.
I think it's straight. I think it's,
Yeah, I feel
yeah.
like
Do you find yourself doing this all the time? Like
I do.
straightening?
I mean, I notice it, but there's a part of me where I feel like perhaps I've just grown with, the strength of the spirit inside me to like just recognize like it's a losing battle. Like you're never winning the battle against picture frames because
You're old enough now to just be lazy.
that too is that, I just need to train up my kids enough to, but yeah,
Yeah. Training up your kids, that's one thing. We're just at the stage now where I find that my oldest can actually do quite a few useful things for me. And that is just such a benefit. It's like, oh wait, like you could go do that. Like I'll send you off to go fetch whatever thing from the kitchen that needs fetching. So that's a great that's a great milestone, I think, in any parent's life.
yeah. And the people that say parenting is hard just haven't waited long enough until
Yeah,
you realize you just have like you have people with energy that can just go do things for you and like bring you water
yeah.
and all that fun stuff. But there's a lot of stuff to get into this week. Kind of some related stuff. One like more like topical story, and then one more just sort of general thing that I've been thinking of, which is the question of like, should Christians, be so positive all the time? Put that smile on your face and, give the good thumbs up and just, we're bright, happy, kumbaya. Or is there a place for Christians to like, hey, just be bummed out and, not positive about things and lament and weep and all that stuff? So kind of we get into to some of that. But before we get to that, do want to mention kind of a topical story. We touched on it. We recorded a great guest episode with Sean Gaffney, which is coming out in the next week or two, and we recorded that just as the news dropped. So in a couple weeks, we'll it'll be going deja vu, back into the future. But that is kind of the new development with the Wonder Project, which if you're not keeping up with the old Christian entertainment industry. That's like the company started by a collection of people, but kind of like John Irwin, the Irwin brothers, who are known for movies like Jesus Revolution and Ordinary Angels, and kind of like the first project from the Wonder Project was the House of David show on Amazon Prime. Like they kind of financed it and created it, and then Amazon distributed it. And that was sort of their like introduction into the world of entertainment, and it did fantastic. Like the show took off, a lot of buzz, a lot of good reception for that. And now we're kind of getting more a look at sort of what the future of that's going to look like, sort of that partnership between the Wonder Project and Amazon Prime. And that is, as is sort of common across all entertainment properties, is that the bottom line is that we're going to have to pay more money. If there's
Yeah.
one thing you can count on, it's that things are going to continue to cost us more money. We will continue to have to sign up to new streaming services. So from sort of the press release that just came out is announcing that the Wonder Project is kind of, I don't know, it's a little different than any of the other stuff I've sort of come across. Like it's essentially becoming its own streaming platform, but like it's still under the umbrella of Amazon. So like it's almost like how sometimes you can get like, hey, you have HBO, and if you pay this much extra, you can get Showtime or some of these other like add-on.
Yeah.
That's kind of the model for this of like, hey, it's still through Amazon, but like if you pay extra, then you will be able to like sort of, I don't know how that will work like practically, but you'll be able to access the Wonder Project sort of streaming platform, which will have like its new things like the House of David, but it will also have sort of other, hand-picked properties and kind of like, exclusive, like behind the paywall, at least initially, will be through sort of that extra streaming platform. So some of and I was pulling this from the Hollywood Reporter, which sort of broke it down a little bit, but it says it looks like it will be an additional $8.99 per month. on top of the Amazon streaming platform to add, the Wonder Project add-on, which Amazon Prime itself, as of now, is $8.99, and that's with ads. To get ad-free is another is over $10. So essentially, you're doubling your cost to access the shows that we were already kind of accessing, but now we gotta pay for it a little extra. And kind of one of the from the press release, which I had sent to me for the Wonder Project, kind of when it describes like sort of its mission or whatever. Says, this fall it will be available. This fall is when it was going to launch. It will feature early access to new Wonder Project original films and series, such as House of David. And at launch, we'll have, and then quote, over 1,000 hours of highly curated movies and TV series that reflect the company's mission to entertain the world with courageous stories, inspiring hope, and restoring faith in the things worth believing on or believing in. Says, and then it says the library will feature mostly non-Wonder Project content. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of this thing. And I will say right at this up front, like, I want to give everything the benefit of the doubt. I don't, I still don't understand like all the details, but my knee-jerk gut reaction is that I kind of hate this. Like,
Yeah.
this is not, this does not excite me. What is your? Do
Yeah.
you share in my kind of hate? Is there stink to this?
Yeah, this does not fill me with wonder, let's say. Yeah, maybe this just speaks to um the lack of viability in like streaming services still, because like I still don't know that like many of these TV shows on streaming are necessarily making money. Um, and that's always been the problem with streaming is like they don't make money. And so maybe this is partly like, hey, we have to make money somehow, so we need to squeeze a few more dollars out of all the people who didn't pay for it before. But it seems to me like, especially with something like this, it was like you did the first season and essentially you could say it was free to the audience. Like for anyone who already had Prime, like we had Prime, I watched it. I thought it was I mean, a huge fan of the show, the of House of David. Thought it was really really good. Um, but I don't think I'm gonna fork over $9 to watch season two. And so it kind of seems like an unforced error if you look at it from just a, a distribution point of view. Like, why would you suddenly just cut off a potential huge audience for um, your content? And so it is kind of a puzzling thing, aside from the fact that maybe they just have to try and make as much money as they can because they're not really making any money distributing it through Amazon. Like I'm not even sure how these deals work. And so it's like, is Amazon, how much is Amazon really paying the Wonder Project to stream their video? And was it one of those like, well, the numbers just don't work, so we're going to have to do our own thing, but sort of still under Amazon? And then if it's like you get free early, like get early access with this app, but does that mean in 6 months, if you just have an Amazon Prime account, you can then watch it later? I don't know. So yeah, it is one of those things. It's just kind of annoying, and it's like I don't want to buy another streaming service.
Yeah,
Like,
because there's like you said, I think there's the two part. There's the money part, and again, I'm not a money guy, so like all that's over my head as far as like, hey,
yeah,
I don't know what their bottom line is and how that works, and like things aren't. It's not cheap to make a big biblical epic for television, and I feel like Amazon's a weird one too, like different than like other services because like I feel like people primarily have Amazon Prime for like free 2-day shipping. Like
yeah,
it's not the same as like, hey, we need these things to, like Netflix, we need Stranger Things to get people to sign up for our platform and then forget they have an account and pay us for month. Like sort of some of the it's like a different animal, but I don't know. So like there is the money side and like, hey, if this is, perhaps the bottom line is like we can't keep making these shows. You know, Amazon's not really paying us; they're distributing it, and to make this work, you know, don't our money only go so far. We need to have subscriptions, like, and that might be like the simplest, you know, solution or answer to that.
Yeah.
But just from like an outside, like just sort of optics and like functional and audience relationship side, like I think what I liked about sort of the House of David on Amazon is that it wasn't this. Like it was
Yeah.
very like, hey, you know what? Like for so long we've sort of Christian entertainment has been sort of having this goal to like make the alternative Hollywood where we can, you know, Christians can have all the same entertainment options and stuff, or like, you know, streaming and movies and TV shows, but they can do it in a way that's very like isolated and very sort of in this bubble, and it's like
Y-
adjacent to Hollywood, and you pick
Yeah.
Hollywood or you pick Christian stuff.
Yeah.
And
It's
it,
been very walled off
yeah, I can sort of like it's like this,
unnecessarily.
yeah, it's like the side room of Hollywood. And I liked that it's some of what they've been doing with Amazon is like, hey, it's we're making great stuff and we're in the system. Like we're in the Hollywood system. We're on Amazon, we're on, you know, other streaming platform, like, and anyone can watch this show and it makes a buzz. And then, you know, House of David's like the number one, you know, listed as the top streaming show in the country right now. And like so other people are logging on to do shopping and they see House of David and like it to me that's sort of like the ideal template. I mean, again, setting aside the financial aspect of it,
Yeah.
like just, and then to me, this sort of does a 180 of that, of like, you know, like now it's sort of its own kind of ecosystem. And like, I think like the idea is that at some point, I think like House of David will be streaming almost like a Patreon early access thing. Like, I don't know how long that is, and like even like The Chosen's kind of done that. Like it's sort of exclusive for a bit, although not really behind a paywall. But like, and then later everyone can see it. And I just think like part of what made the show such like the House of David show such a success is that like it was this big cultural thing that like all the outlets had to talk about because it was doing great numbers and it was popping up on Amazon and like it was this big hit. And I think as soon as you put that behind a paywall, which like you said, like I'm, you know, hopefully they'll send me these to review early, but like there's too many. I'm already paying for probably two or three more streaming services than I should be paying for. Like I don't have an extra $9 a month to watch a couple, you know, like a limited library of some of these things. And
Yeah.
you know, so I think like once you do that, you're losing a lot of people. And then once you like, hey, you know, the hardcores are watching the show now, but you know, in 7 months, the regulars will have access. Like you're just sort of instead of having a big release, you're sort of spreading it out to where it's like people are experiencing watching it at different times. So you don't get sort of that, it never becomes that big, you know, new episode release. And now it's like, well, some people are watching it now, but some people are going to watch it later when it's free and all this. Like, I don't know. I think not that these shows necessarily have to be like, you know, missional and like, you know, infiltrate mainstream entertainment and stuff, but like there is a part that is like that's not a bad thing really like that
Yeah.
like
Well,
hey, other people can stumble across this like kind of faith-based content because like you're not having you know some atheist or something isn't signing up for the Wonder Project like you just it very much we sort of set up our camps and I don't know like, I don't
it to me, yeah, aside from all, like, again, financials aside, it really seems like a step backwards to me. It's like, isn't having your show alongside, Reacher and whatever other giant shows that are on Amazon, like, isn't that, like, wasn't that sort of the point? Is like, hey, we can tell a biblical epic that has a huge reach, that has become a conversation piece because everybody's watching it. And then you say, okay, well, the lesson learned here is we're going to wall off this garden and only the people who pay us more are now going to watch it. And so then, yeah, you diffuse the conversation aspect of it. So like only the mega fans are paying for it and watching it, and then later everybody else will. And I don't know. Yeah, to me, it seems like an unforced error and a step backwards. Like I feel like if there were shows in like I don't know, something like the Wonder Project, it would seem to me that it would be aspirational to like jump out of just the Wonder Project app and like go mainstream, to like, hey, now we're on Netflix. Or, I mean, that's sort of what The Chosen did, right? Like it was on their app, but now you can stream it on Amazon, and it's like, well, isn't that better? Just from like a missional and creativity and creation standpoint, it's like, don't you want more people to see what you did? And so it seems just kind of at odds with, I think,
Yeah, and I think too,
what would
and
be
I'd
the
actually heard some talk, kind of behind the scenes stuff that not necessarily the specifics, but that like the Irwin, like that this was a plan. Like I don't know how that would look, but to sort of have those creatives ultimately have sort of their own streaming platform. And like sort of when some of those rumors and some of those reports and stuff were coming kind of circulating, like part of my like I think even just from a user standpoint of like, hey, I like a lot of the stuff that they're doing. I like the House of
yeah
David. I liked the Ordinary Angels movies. Like, I even liked sort of the Unbreakable Boy, which wasn't as popular. Like, I like a lot of what they're doing. The problem with for me, and this will sort of lead into our next conversation, but is that like a lot of this faith-based stuff tends to have a very similar tone and focus. Like you're not getting, a sweeping canvas of colors. Like you're getting, like they say, very sort of inspirational tearjerker dramas or like Bible adaptation. Like it's a narrow range of stuff,
yeah
which is fine when it's like, hey, you know what? We have Netflix and Amazon, and there's all these other shows that I like to watch or things like, and like, I think there's a place for those sort of stuff. The problem is when you're like, okay, well now we got to pay for the Wonder Project, which means hey, we got to cancel Hulu or Netflix or Disney or whatever else you're streaming because we can't afford to have unlimited streaming platforms. Like, I just don't know if there's enough variety and like entertainment value to justify like the commitment of having a whole streaming thing for that. Like,
yeah I
it's
mean,
like,
I
yeah, I
think
like entertain, I like lots of, I like inspirational stuff, but like, I don't want to just constantly watch. What's the next, you know, like Christian drama or biopic. Like I want to watch other stuff too. Like I want to watch action. I want to watch horror or like all these other genres like that like for me I just can't imagine being hooked in enough to that one. And maybe some people just that's what they like, kind of like me with power metal. Like just give me the same thing over and over and I'm happy. Like and so like there probably is an audience. I don't know. I think Christian stuff, unless we're going to really branch out and not have it just sort of be all family friendly, positive, encouraging, that I just don't think a Christian streaming thing really makes sense from like, which does lead into sort of the wider conversation. And I was thinking like part of this conversation is inspired by the Wonder Project and just stuff I've been thinking about. It kind of popped up in some other episodes we've done, and that's just the whole idea of like kind of Christian positivity. And maybe
yeah
I'm just a negative, cynical person that wants to question some of that, but I feel like you most readily see it in these conversations of like the arts and movies and especially music. That sort of like there's this sort of this implication in a lot of different ways that like sort of the proper Christian mindset and posture is one of like the big phony used car salesman lot guy smile and like just positive happy kind of like that what's the documentary like happy smiling people or whatever that like based on
oh
the Duggars sort of branch of like kind
oh
of
yeah
that like and like, maybe less like cultish than that
yeah
and more well intentioned but kind of that idea that like hey you know what like you know to be a Christian is to just sort of focus on just very positive and uplifting and encouraging. And I think you see that with like the Wonder Project with like, hey, we're going to be a streaming platform that is curated to give stories that are positive and uplifting and encouraging. Like those are the things that we need to focus on. So kind of to set the stage to get into sort of like, is that actually healthy or needed or good, or should we be? Is there a place to be more, to lament and be down and bummed out and some of that? I did a little research, a little digging, just to like because like Christian radio is notorious for that. Like it
Yeah.
is we were talking before we started recording that I 100% think like if you slap some AI, you know, program over Christian radio songs and changed it into like a gibberish language where you couldn't understand a single word being said, like, and then you mixed it in with like other pop songs and secular music, like I feel like you would have a 100% success rate to pick out the Christian songs. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you don't need to hear them singing hallelujah to know, like, because they have sort of that glossy positive like bubblegum kind of sugar rush type tone that like where you can just tell like without hearing
Yeah.
the word, like they have a when it's Christian radio and when it's not. So I
Which I,
kind of did.
which I think to that point, and I think I said this a few episodes ago, and I forget the context of what I said it in, but the like my 6-year-old asked like 10 seconds into a song that was on a Christian radio. I was like, Dad, is this a church song? It's like, yeah, because it sounds like one. Like there's like even at 6, she knows like this is not like a normal song. This is a church song. So, anyways,
Yeah, you can definitely tell. So I kind of looked, I was just doing some research, like looking up, like what are some of like the biggest like Christian radio stations out there, and then I was just trying to find their like slogans, like how do they sort of summarize themselves. So I'll kind of run down a little bit. K-Love, perhaps the biggest, used to be the tagline when they launched was the positive alternative, and they have since sort of settled into positive and encouraging K-Love. You have 88.5, The Mix. Their slogan is positive hits. Looked at 88 or 89.9, The Light, which is run by a company, kind of media company called Positive Media. And they're on their website, sort of their like mission statement or tagline or whatever it is. Every song we play is positive, uplifting, and purposefully chosen to keep hope alive for our listeners. 104 The Fish, which is, I think, since recently sort of shut down, but in our area of Atlanta, was their slogan was uplifting and positive. You can start you can pick up some themes.
I'm sensing a theme here, Daniel.
Joy FM, which is sort of the parent company mission statement, says to extend the reach of Christian community by affirming what is positive in our culture. And a couple more quick ones. Air One Radio used to be the positive alternative. Now their slogan is positive hits. Christian Radio Network says music that inspires, faith that heals. Power 99, encouraging music, inspiring moments. Positive Life Radio, which their slogan is positive life, positive music. And then the last one, Word FM, their slogan is hope, inspiration, and encouragement. So you like, I mean, like you don't need to. Again, there isn't a sense of like there are radio stations that are just top Christian hits, like some more generic ones. But these are the ones that came up as like the biggest sort of radio stations and like going down. And like it is very easy to find sort of the through line of that. I plugged it into Chat GPT and just asked, what is the purpose of Christian radio? And it gave like a list of 5 things. The first thing was spreading the message of the gospel. But then like the second thing, based on sort of, gathering across the internet, was offering encouragement and inspiration. So very much like, I feel like the defining feature of Christian radio is positivity and encouragement.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of this like, it's the IV of positive thoughts that we just sort of inject into us every commute so that we feel positive going to work and going from work and while we're cleaning the house. And what are your sort of like initial thoughts on, because like I feel like everyone knows that. Uh, so like this
Yeah.
is sort of like I went into it sort of knowing what answer I was going to get, but it is shocking like the deeper you go, like there's not a whole lot of outside the box thinking with these.
Yeah. I guess my first thought is like, what does it mean to be positive? Like, how are they defining positive? And like, I think everyone kind of knows like uplifting, inspirational, but it's like, it's just an interesting word, like for a Christian organization, like the word that's going to define your organization is positive. And it's kind of, I don't know, I haven't thought too deeply about it, but it's like it seems kind of like a nothing word in some ways. It's like that could kind of mean anything. It's like it's positive, but and so I don't know. In my mind, it seems like it's trying to be outreachy a little bit by just, it's not saying like Christian music, it's just positive hits or, positive music. But, maybe one of those that you mentioned plays music that's not overtly Christian, and that's like highly curated, and it still has to be inspirational. And so I don't know, it's just kind of it's a weird place to plant your flag, I think, as like a Christian
Yeah, well, because I feel like it's
organization.
like I feel like
Or
the
maybe
word
I'm just being way too
you just
cynical
need to be
about it.
more positive. I think is
I
you
know,
need to listen to more positive hits to like
clearly.
it's very much focused on like the emotions that you feel like whatever like the effects of listening, like how sort of the transactional thing you will feel positive. It's not just music, but like but I just feel like the word positive is just such an empty and like it has a stigma. Like to me, it's very like self-help industry-ish. Like it's very, think happy thoughts, think, just think on the positive side, like 10 steps to living a positive life. Like it's
Yeah,
very shallow. It's very, like because like, the Bible talks about like joy, this like very deep, a different type of, and like, it doesn't mean you just smile and like hey, real superficial. Like it's something very deep and real and meaningful. And to me, like positive though is this such like a it's such like a fleeting kind of like artificial word, like buzzword that
yeah,
like it sort of has this like therapeutic escapist kind of thing. And kind of what so like I was thinking about this and just like hey it seems like and again like, I feel like we've talked about before like sort of how we think of like what makes art Christian. You can kind of expand that a bit to like how do we see what it means, like obviously it's different. Songs can't have a relationship with Jesus, like it's not one-on-one, but like, you can sort of see this the mindset of what it means to be Christian, how we define our art and music and stuff, and what we should focus on is going to have ties to like just how we view Christianity. And like, so like if we look at like music and stuff, and I think even like things like now streaming, which is sort of becoming like a Christian radio station for videos, with like the Wonder Project, like you sort of see like positive is an encouragement, like those buzzwords are sort of how we tend to think that's what it means to sort of be a Christian, is to be positive, to be uplifted, and like so I was kind of looking just like where do we get that in the Bible, like because like I feel like a lot of people will just sort of plant their flag there that like oh yeah, to be a Christian means to be positive and to be we need to sort of be happy all the time, and you kind of get that even like at church, like if you ask someone like how their week is, like you're not gonna get some honest I'm really struggling, my kid is going through a hard time and I was crying all night and I'm just, I just can't see God at work in my life and I'm doubts and I'm crying out to him. And like what you get is, God is good all the time and all the time God is good. And yeah, life's great. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm a child of the King. And it's like things that aren't false, but they're just not honest in the way that they're articulated. Like, but
yeah.
it's kind of like, do we actually have verses in the Bible that sort of define Christianity by being positive? And like again, like I didn't read the entire Bible in preparation for this podcast, but
You
like
didn't?
I mean I haven't. I'm usually on like a 2 week cycle, so I still have a
Oh,
bit more time
oh,
to catch up. But I've missed some of the old numbers and stuff. I glossed over, but like you really don't get that. Like you don't get a sense that like Jesus ever teaching or like the disciples really that like to be a Christian is to be positive, if we define positive in the same sense as like happy, smiley, warm, fuzzy, uplifted, like if we define it in that way, you just don't get it in the Bible. Like you get verses about joy, like, hey, count it all joy. But I mean, even that is very much, like James 2, 1, 2, like count it all joy, whenever you face trials, because testing produces like perseverance in the faith. And like it's still in the context of like not happy things. Like
Yeah.
count it all joy when life is dark and bad and you're struggling, and you can still have joy through that, but you don't really get the sense of that he's saying, so just smile and pretend nothing's happening. Like that's just not what you get. Like, and I mean, even like the Psalms, which are like our biblical version of like songs, like most, at least half the Psalms probably don't make the cut on contemporary Christian radio, because
Yeah.
like there's some pretty dark and grim like song. Like, you don't get positive and encouraging for the whole family if you read the entire book of Psalms. I pulled a couple. We won't go through all of these, but Psalm 13. No, how long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts day after day and have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? I'm not feeling super uplifted by that. Psalm 42, my tears have been my food day and night, while people say to me all day long, where is your God? Psalm 69, save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths there where there is no foothold. I have come into deep waters. The flood engulfs me. I am worn out calling for help. My throat is parched. My eyes fail looking for my God. I mean, you can go on and on. We won't take
Yeah.
more time to go, but like that's not positive and encouraging K-Love. Like
I
that's
don't feel positive or uplifted.
like this you could say is like the precursor to like the emo movement. Like
Yeah.
this is very angsty, not necessarily giving clean answers. And so I just wonder like how much of have sort of this sort of positive aura mindset is actually like biblical, and how much of it is actually sort of self-serving. It's like a therapeutic kind of escapism that like, we just constantly escape from the harsh realities of the world and like escape into this world where everything's wonderful, and even like doubts and questions are still framed and like presented in a very bubblegummy, upbeat kind of rhythm and beat and melodies. And it's like you get the sense that like, they're talking about real stuff, but like they're not actually like they're scratching the surface of it. Like they're
Yeah.
not
They're not
really
going real deep.
lamenting. They're just sort of in a very like kitschy uh, kind of way. And like even like you see like Jesus like multiple times like encounters situations in the Bible, and like whether it's Jerusalem or the death of his friend, or just at different points with his disciple, like in Gethsemane, and he's thinking about the cross coming, like where it says he just like weeps and laments and is filled with sorrow to the point of like death, like or the need to be comforted. And like Jesus did not live, you know that fake smile, everything's great. Like you know he very much was honest and like acknowledge the reality. Like, so I don't know. Like, am I like? Is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think maybe to maybe give a little pushback to that is
How dare you?
I would think that probably the intent behind a lot of these radio stations is to sort of be a place where Christians who are living and working and being in the world have a place of refuge. Would probably, like, if you were to ask some of these radio stations, I would guess that they would say, well, we want a place where Christians can come and like be comforted and kind of let their hair down. And, because if you're working in a secular job 40 hours a week, maybe more, and, you're just dealing with all the stuff that happens in life and in this world, wouldn't it be nice to have a place to come to just sort of be refreshed and be renewed? And my guess is that's probably at least somewhere in the thinking of creating these sort of alternative music and Christian contemporary music was to be that sort of place where you could come and the people singing and the DJs all sort of have your same worldview. and isn't there comfort in that? And I think which I think I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think that's okay, and hopefully that's what your church is. And again, there's a lot of layers to this, and so like one would think that you're getting that sort of nourishment, one on your own time with the Lord, but also in your own Christian community, which means that you're regularly attending church and you're pouring into the lives of your community and also being poured into in a way that encourages you, that uplifts you, so that on Monday you're able to withstand the the tirades of your horrible boss or whatever the situation may be. And so I think in that sense maybe it's I'll give them a little bit of grace, but I think the problem comes when it's like it's only ever that, and then you're not like encouraging people to kind of fly the coop, if as it were, and
Yeah,
like
well, I think it's like to use your like church sort of being like that for our life. I think that is like we come out of the world and you're uplifted. Like I feel like it's when we go from there and like, hey, this feels good to sort of be like, so why don't we go start a monastery? Like, like, and it's
yeah,
just us all the time. And we're always like, and I feel like that sort of can become the sort of the metaphor for some of this of like, you know, again, like, not that the equivalent is like, yeah, but I've been listening to too much positive stuff. Like I need to go find, Cannibal Corpse and some death grunge metal band that's just singing about suicide. And I need to, get into that. Like I don't think Christians should be like in despair. Like I think through
yeah,
all things joy, like we have hope in all circumstances, like contentment, like I'm not really saying the equivalent is we need more depressing stuff. It's just sort of that the superficial positivity. And like I don't know, like I think for me, and I can only speak from my own experience, I guess, but like sometimes I wonder like how much sort of persecution are we experiencing in the world that like we actually need just a steady IV dose of encouragement and positivity
yeah,
at all time. Like at a certain point, like I feel like it becomes an overindulgence of, like if you just constantly every day for hours need to like escape into this sort of positive world, then like I don't know. Like, I think there's other issues at play,
yeah,
like maybe at times, like I think there's like seasons of that. But it's sort of like at some point for me, I just wonder, like, is it actually because we need that? Like, or is it because it's, it can be very self-focused, it's entirely designed to make us just feel good. And
yeah,
it's not really honest about life. Like I don't think it ever pushes us to grow. Like, it never
right,
challenges us. Like it never leaves room for like honest conversations and doubts and wrestling with stuff. And, you know, because it's very pat you on the back. Everything's good. You're good. Life's good. Like, put a smile on your face and keep going. And I think there's a season for that. I just wonder, sort of like the asking someone at church how you're doing, and God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. Like, I just like how much healthier would like the Christian community be if like instead of that we were like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm going through a lot of struggles right now. Like, can I share with you? Like, and just not that they're just you know start dressing all in goth and stuff, but like just an awareness of like, hey, you know what? Like we don't need to just pretend to be a Christian is not to sort of manufacture this like
yeah,
exaggerated positivity on steroids, like, don't worry, be happy kind of mindset. Like it's actually acknowledging reality and still having joy in the midst of that, but like being willing to like lament and see brokenness and like be shaken up inside and like not comforted. Like there's a time for that too. And I think when things like the Christian radio or like now with things like the Wonder Project, where we're very much siloing to like, here's the places you can go, and there's more and more like, so you always sort of get this dopamine jolt of like positive thoughts, and you can just
yeah,
constantly feel like everything's great. I don't know. I don't know if that's a biblical concept, but it very
yeah. I
much
don't.
is treated as one.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it is biblical, but I think it's also it kind of goes back, harping on the Christian industry. It's kind of been a pet project of mine, I guess. I feel like I every episode it's like, oh, Christian industry. But it's like what maybe started out as a good idea or like maybe nothing wrong with it to begin with, but then it becomes an industry, right? And it's like you have contemporary Christian music and now you have this whole industry that basically exists to serve the choir, to preach to the choir, to, you know, assuage the hurt feelings of the choir and to, make everybody feel nice all the time. And, and that sells. And like how many people actively push away things that make them feel good? Not too many people. And, it takes a certain amount of discipline and willpower to do that. And yet there's a whole industry that sort of is built around making you feel good. And and maybe that's too harsh of words for it, but I just think that's not healthy for uh Christians
Yeah, well,
and
it's kind of, and you had used, I think before we went on air, like the example of like ice cream. Like I feel like there are definitely times
yeah,
where, hey, you know what? Like this was a bad day. I'm dealing with some stuff. Like I'm gonna go get a tub of ice cream. I'm gonna watch a movie and just like
yeah,
sort of therapeutic, self-therapy. And like I think that's totally fine. Like there's definitely like, ice cream works. Like
yeah,
I don't know what the science is, but there is science because it works. I feel like there's a time and place for that. It's just like at a certain point, if like, okay, now every day my nightly routine is to just come home, flop on the couch, eat ice cream, watch movies, not exercise, not have hobbies,
yeah,
not social. Like at a certain point, you're like you can have too much of a good thing, like where you're so
yeah,
self-indulgent that like it's actually producing like unhealthy results. And I do feel like that's happens with some of this positive sort of the superficial part is that like it can make us very shallow. Like it's very much all about just us feeling good. It's not challenging. We're not growing, or it's not pushing us out of our comfort zone. We're not learning or seeing different perspectives, or it's just very like it's sort of our ice cream, and we it makes us just feel good whether we really need it or not. And like I do think at a certain point there is a time to just like, okay, like now it's time to move on. Like now, not that you never listen to Christian radio, but like just sort of as a posture, as a way of going through life, like there's a time where like for the Christian to not just sort of dwell in false positivity, but to
yeah. Well,
actually,
and yeah, I think the diet analogy is a great way to think about it. Um, and I think what ends up happening though is it's like, so what do you do? It's like you don't want to ban ice cream, and I'm not for that.
oh
Like
no, definitely don't want to do that.
obviously. Um, but you have to exercise some discernment in what you eat if you want to be a healthy person. And I think, like I don't think the solution is to like ban Christian radio or say, try and get them off the air or something, or make them play a lot of sad music or, uh, you know, but it's also though, if you're not around a community that values not eating ice cream all the time, so there's sort of like, yes, there is the individual responsibility to like, only you can decide your, state of health in some ways, but also if you're around people that only ever eat ice cream, it's going to be very hard to not eat ice cream, and then I think the same can kind of be said, like if you're only in this sort of like machine of positivity, you're gonna start to be disconnected from like life, I think in some ways. But it's hard to like, and I think in the American church especially, there's so much emphasis on the individual that we don't often think about like the health of the group, and that you'll be labeled a communist if you talk about the well, what about, the can you set aside your preferences for the benefit of the group. It's like, well, no, I'm not a communist. Like, and so there's this, I think there's that tension of both as a group, as a community. I think there's some responsibility to think about these sort of things, but also there is the individual, responsibility. And I don't know, like I don't have a, I don't know that I'm trying to give an answer for this
Yeah,
other
and I don't
than
really
just
know if
like,
there is. I think because things are so ingrained too. I guess for me, the only real thing we can do is just. I guess I've sort of the drum I've been banging for a while is that I think Christians need to become more comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like that
yeah,
that's actually okay to have something that challenges your views and like that is or opposes your views or like makes you rethink your views or like makes you actually feel like unsettled rather than like I remember watching a very feel goody warm fuzzy Christian faith-based movie and after talking to someone in our church and them being like I just was so moved by that. Like I just love I felt so good. Like, it's such a powerful and it's again like it's subjective. They can feel however they want, but like part of me was just sort of thinking like, well, of course you did. Like everything about that movie was just like made in a factory almost to like make you feel that way. Like it's
yeah,
the hero is someone just like you. The villains are the people that aren't like you, and the film is all about how the hero, because they are like you, everything turned out perfect and the bad people were bad and like and it was all happy and like it's like what is there not to feel good about like that's
yeah,
it doesn't mean that that's it may not be true to life like that's not how things necessarily work out in real life but like in the movie you feel good like that like yeah like there is sort of that sort of whatever like when things are catered to make us feel that way then like of course it's going to make us feel good and we think we want that so I guess like for me it's really is just like hey not that you stop listening to happy positive Christian radio or anything but just I think have a bit more intentionality to like like and just a willingness like whether it's in what you listen to or just like as a Christian in this world that I we we aren't required by scripture and Jesus's teachings to like plant a false big smile on our face at all times and and to think that we're somehow like less of a Christian if it's like actually my days kind of sucks today like love
yeah,
Jesus still got joy still got hope for my future
yeah,
salvation but like today sucks and
yeah,
I'm expressing that it sucks like and like that be able to like accept that a bit more and I think that can lead to healthier relationships and conversations uh and all of that but it is something that I've been thinking about for a while with again
yeah,
I don't necessarily listen to Christian radio because there's not enough metal Christian radio stations and that's all I listen to because I'm narrow-minded so it doesn't necessarily directly affect me but I do think that it is something worth beyond the narrow scope of just music of just like what it means to be Christian and like a more healthy biblical sense of like joy as opposed to sort of self-help positivity. I was saying
yeah,
that I know will definitely like a good faith-based film make me feel good and uplift me and will be positive and encourage me throughout my day is the next segment of this podcast, which is things we like that you should like too. Well, Samuel, this, I believe, unless I got the show notes wrong, is your week to share something that you like that other people should like if they don't already like. So, what do you have this week that you find yourself giving you positive thoughts?
Well, last time I shared about the great disaster flick, The Wave, which is about you know,
Wave.
yeah, a wave, a mountain falling into the sea and flooding the village at the end of a Norwegian fjord. And because of just the reams and reams of fan mail that I received and all the communication that I've had to field saying, what's another good disaster flick? That was so amazing. And so, because of, responding to just the copious amounts of requests, I thought I would share another disaster flick that I think is worthy of viewing, and that is a movie called Greenland. Um, and I think it does, I think, a similar thing that The Wave does. So if you like the sort of focus on a family and just sort of the human element of a disaster movie, it does that extremely well. And also it was shot mostly in and around Atlanta, so I like recognize some of the areas in the movie, which is that's always fun. It's like, oh, I know where that grocery store is. Um, but it's Gerard Butler, and you know it's apocalyptic. There's a surprise like meteor shower that's headed towards Earth, and it's like way worse than what the meteorologist thought it was going to be. Like they're like, oh, I think it'll be do this, but then it's like, oh, it's like shutting down, like it's destroying the Earth, and like they've been selected to go to this special bunker in Greenland to like they're just basically trying to save enough of humanity so that they can restart after this is all over. Um, and it's just it's great, and it's not too spectacle heavy. It's really just about like this family trying to get up to Greenland. It's Gerard Butler, What's Not to Love, and I think what's interesting about it too is it's when it begins, like it's the dad is moving back into the house with his wife and son after obviously having some sort of a failure that you don't know what. And so there's a lot of interesting like family dynamics at play as the world is ending. And so it's a great flick, and it doesn't focus too much on the spectacle, and it's really about like just a guy trying to save his family and get up to Greenland at all costs. And so check it out.
Well, you totally. I feel guilty now. I feel like I because you uh, a couple weeks ago you like were sharing this movie to me, and like totally had me sold because that's totally my jam. And I was gonna watch it while my family was out of town. And I actually had it pulled up on my screen and was gonna sit and watch it, and then it got pulled away. And then I ended up falling into like an Alien marathon, and that took
Yeah.
up all my evenings. So I have still not watched it, but I have found it online, and I need to because it's just hard to go wrong with a good disaster film.
Yeah.
Like
It really
those
is.
are
Like,
always in style. Like those
and
always.
I think because I had seen it like pop up, um, just in like the whatever the suggested movies and stuff. And I was like, I don't know, like, because I feel like I feel like there's the kind of a heavy emotional toll that like disaster flicks can sometimes bring, and it's just like, do I really want to like,
It's not
do I need to get
positive enough.
emotionally invested in these people and the end of the world stuff? And it's like, I don't know, like, but I finally did. I was like, oh, this is actually like, it's actually really good, and there's a lot of like again, to maybe bring it back to the positive and uplifting, there are a lot of like strong family themes in this movie, despite the disaster that befalls them. And which again is like, I don't know that it was like, I don't know that it was necessarily like a Christian movie, or like, I don't know that it was faith based, but there's a bit of faith in there too. But just really like, it portrays the family, flawed as it is, as sort of like worthy of fighting for and, you know, trying to save. And so I thought that was really good too.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the movie's not super old. Like it came out a handful of years ago.
Yeah,
Like I had no memory of it. Like
I didn't either.
ever
Yeah,
being in theaters or like I don't know if it was a straight to streaming and like
it may have been.
like I has no memory of. And again, I'm pretty plugged in because I'm doing reviews and stuff. Like so maybe it was right before I started doing that. But so I will check it out. I will be among the many that will be adding it
Oh yeah,
probably as we speak to their their next up next watch lists
yeah.
on streaming. I will actually add it, and maybe I can convince my wife to watch this with me. Something that we hopefully don't have to convince any of you to do is join us every week for more of these conversations. Again, always fun to do. Lots of stuff happening, especially in the summer. I didn't even mention like my review for the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Rebirth movie will be coming out. Actually, probably will be out by the time this episode airs, and lots of Superman movie coming up, and lots of good stuff. As I mentioned, we have a great guest episode that we've recorded with Sean Gaffney, which will be releasing in a couple weeks. So definitely return, check that. He was a great guest. So there's always lots to talk about. So we hope we will see you next Thursday and every week for more conversations on faith and pop culture.